Have you ever felt like your construction business completely depends on you? Every decision, every problem, every phone call, nothing seems to move forward unless you're involved. And even when you try to step away, things start to unravel and fall apart. Now, imagine building a company where your team can run the projects without you constantly stepping in, and you finally have the freedom to focus on the big picture and actually leave the office at 4 p.m. You're listening to the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com, where we are all about systematizing your construction business to maximize three things: freedom, impact, and wealth. My name is Todd, and my team and I have helped over 400 construction companies eliminate chaos, grow their teams, and grow their profits. Today on the show, we're diving into a really important question. What does it actually take to build a construction company that's more profitable and runs without you being involved in every detail? To help us answer that, we're joined by John Springstead, owner of John Springstead Construction in New Jersey. John's been in construction since the early 90s, but for years his company ran the way that many construction businesses do. Everything lived in his head. He was constantly troubleshooting problems, constantly putting out fires, and the business relied on him being everywhere at once. In this episode, you're going to learn three key things. First, the one thing that allows your team to take ownership and runs projects without you. If you want your team to take ownership and run projects without you, you're going to learn about that. Second, why a structured pre-construction process can eliminate chaos before a job even begins. John will talk about his experience and what his pre-construction process looks like. And third, how John transformed his role from the daily firefighter to a business owner. How he created a company where his team runs the field while he focuses on growth and strategy. And you'll hear how those changes allowed John to step away from the constant day-to-day pressure, going from 60-hour weeks and nonstop calls, even after hours, to a much calmer schedule where the team handles operations and he can actually leave the office every day at 4. This is what a systematized business looks like under the hood. So if you're ready to build a construction company that doesn't depend on you for everything and start creating real freedom as an owner, if you want a business that runs without you, stick around for this episode of the Construction Leading Edge podcast with John Springstead. Enjoy. John, good to have you on the podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Give us a brief intro, who you are, name of your company, what kind of work you do, and where you're located.
My name is John Springstead. My company name is John Springstead Construction. I'm out of Glen Rock, New Jersey, which is about 30 minutes west of New York City. We do large-scale remodels, renovations, and whole house remodels is what we like to do.
How'd you get started in business?
I'm one of 4. I have an older sister and 2 younger brothers, and the 4 of us are 5 years apart, so we're very close. And I remember every single Christmas, I put together every toy, every table, anything that came through the door, and I always loved figuring out how things worked. I threw out the directions immediately and figured out how to get it together. And I loved the process on making things go and figuring out how things go. I wiggled my way through school, and when it came time to go to college, my parents were like, "You want to go to college?" I was like, "I guess so." I didn't know what I was going to do, but I ended up going to the University of Maine, and I was not interested in anything that they had to offer. So I had fun for 3 years, went to trade school in Bangor, Maine. And when I got to trade school, I went for construction, and something was different. I loved it. I loved every class I took. I loved learning about every aspect of the home. I worked for a roofer in the summer. And when I graduated that trade school, I started a construction company with a Sawzall, my parents' station wagon, and my brother. That's how I got involved. And since that time, I have every job I've ever had or done has been in construction. So I wiggled my way up and learned and grew, and eventually in 2011 started John Springstead Construction, and I had no partners and it was all mine, and that's where I took off.
Nice. Probably seen a few bumps
Yes.
in the road.
Yep.
Times of adversity. Yeah. What was one of the toughest seasons in business for you?
I was in business with my brother from 1991 to 2000. We started in a recession. We never really had any money. We were very young, and we just, like I said, I was learning about construction. Then I went off because we were brothers and we butted heads a little bit, decided to go out and try my own. I was never a business person. I was always the producer. I produced on every job I was ever on. My brother was more of the business runner. So when I went out on my own in like 2001, 2002, whatever it was very short lived because I got a couple good jobs, ran myself up into debt, produced, didn't know how to estimate. Like I love to build, but I didn't follow up with anything. Everything was done in my head. I had no estimating processes. I had no anything installed. So that lasted for 2 years until I ran myself into debt and ended up going back to work for my brother as an interim. And during that time, I produced everything in the field again, and he ran the business side of it. Then 2008 came, and I guess that was probably the horrible time. He ended up going under because I learned a lot from how not to run a company, but he ended up going under, and I went to school for home inspections because I love everything about homes. I loved building them. I loved figuring them out. So I went to become a home inspector figure out what I was going to do because he was leaving. And at the last minute, I was like, I could do home inspections or I can try and do my own company. And that was like my jumping off point. So in 2011, I started John Springstead Construction again with some spreadsheets and some, how am I going to do this? I went to construction shows like the Journal of Light Construction. And I think even back in maybe it was 2015 or something like that, I might have come across you at one of those shows. And I think that's how your email bounced across my desk a couple times. That's how I got started in construction. And since 2011, it's been nothing but a growing for me and learning. And I've really, like I said, I really enjoy what I do. And I think as I go forward, I get better at it, especially with the help of good people around me and stuff.
You've been working with us for a while. You went through our systematized your construction business program in the spring of 2023. So about 3 years ago now. What was going on that led you to reach out to us initially?
In 2020, I hired my daughter, Shannon, who was a physics major in college, very smart, but she wasn't really, it was in COVID. Nobody was getting jobs. So she asked me if I had stuff to do. And because I ran my company out of my basement and my head, I certainly could use some help. She worked with me and she was a very quick learner, and she started taking data and she followed me around and she learned about construction, and we tried to implement some stuff. And we had another employee, Jonathan, who had always worked with me since Shannon was probably 6, 7 years old. I knew that I was running a company and I knew I wasn't efficient, but my customers loved me. I was honest, I'm a straight shooter. I've been doing it a long time, but I knew that I was not as efficient as I could be. And Shannon was now collecting data. We had data coming in, and a couple of years before that, jumped in on co-construct. So I'd started to get a little bit organized, but cash flow was a problem, and not doing anything the same twice, I knew was a problem. Like I had systems in my head, but nothing was written down. So truth be told, the reason I called or reached out to you, because I think I wanted to identify and solve some profit bleeds, and I'd be fine. Like, I don't even think I was aware of the systematizing your stuff. Like, I think I really wanted that one bullet point you had was, do you have profit bleeds or whatever? And I'm like, I definitely have profit bleeds. So that's when I reached out to you.
Everybody should have a physics major in their construction company. That's all I can
highly recommend it. Yes, I really do.
If you go back to the time before you signed up and we started working together, what were some of your concerns? Do you remember what you were concerned about before you signed up?
Why can't I make money doing this? I felt like I was always always at 0 or minus 50 grand, like that was where I always worked. And it was like when I was minus 50 grand, it was so hard to keep jobs running because who do I pay? What suppliers can I order from? And then when I was at 0, it was like, okay, am I getting money to pay X, Y, and Z? It was a constant struggle, but because I wasn't organized, I didn't really know what to do. I knew that I didn't have structure, but I didn't know what structure looked like. And talking with you, I realized that this was a little bit more than just trying to find a profit bleed and stop making trips to the lumberyard. One of the things I do believe in, when I invest in myself, things go pretty well. Not that it doesn't make it any less scary, but when you're trying to keep your head above water and you want to invest money in something, it's like, do I pay somebody or do I take a leap of faith and invest in this? I'm like, I got to figure out something. So I started working with you guys.
Knowing what you know now, what were some of the main root causes of your profit bleeds that you were dealing with?
The lack of communication from landing a job to going to start a job. You talk about it a lot. Like that's how I ran my company on, let's get enough to get started and we'll figure it out as we go. And that's how I ran my company from, 1991 to 2023. That's how I ran my company, not knowing that there was a better way, but like when I look back on it, really the only way to do this was to implement the stuff that you were teaching us. And when I first heard you talk about that pre-construction, I was like, that's interesting, but I didn't understand it. And then getting all that information and where does it live? So that's the process that we go through when we go through the SYCB. I recommend it to anybody because it just has changed so much about how we operate. It's also freed me up, so much overall.
You went through the SYCB program. You've learned how to create your pre-construction process and some other stuff in our program. Take us to the moment when you realized that the systems you were implementing, that the work you were doing was actually working. Was there a moment where you were like, wow, this shit works?
Because we had landed a decent job and we were also going through SYCB. Now we have to implement pre-construction, yet we've never done it, but we have to act like we've done it before. I will tell you that a lot of the implementation for me, I get better at it as I do it. I didn't start out with a perfect pre-construction program. I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pick everything out before we start, or we need damn near 75% of it before we start. So when a little uncomfortable asking people to go pick out tile when we're not even digging a hole, and I can tell you how much I've learned so much from all of this, but I had to implement it and it wasn't perfect, but it still today is getting better and better as we do it. And I'm becoming much more comfortable with it. I today would never go back to a job and be like, oh yeah, we'll start. You don't need the roof right now. And the reason I would never do that is because that job that we started with our pre-construction on was a $1.2 million job. That's a decent sized job for us. It's one of the larger jobs. We started it and we were complete in 8 months, 8 months, like to the day. And there were some challenging parts, but we were never delayed. A designer got involved late and came onto the job and was like changing things. And we're like, well, okay, but hold on. We still went over it, everything, and we still did it completely different than we did all of our other jobs because we had the information so much earlier. And we were able to put a nice book together for our lead guy, Jonathan, who was able to run the jobs without me being there all the time. And that was in the handoff kind of stuff that we do. A big office meeting with our super and the main guy on the job, and we go through that project and we go through everything with them. We don't expect them to remember everything, but we tell them where everything is and they can find it. And it completely transformed the way we do work. From that time forward, it was like this, we got something here.
So one of the things people struggle with is what you mentioned. Said you were a little uncomfortable asking the customer to pick out tile before you had even started. Some people would say, these customers are paying us $1.2 million. We can't tell them what to do, right? We have to bend to them and we can't force them to do anything. We can't force them to make decisions. What would you tell people, builders and remodelers who believe that? What would you tell them?
If you believe that, it's true. They are going to run it the way they want to do it. When I had joined and met some of the people in the CEO Alliance and stuff like that, I'll never forget. I went down to one of the meetups, and I was talking with Michael Moore, and he was like, just asking me, like, how long have you been doing this? I was like, since 1991. He was like, wow, that's a lot of experience, And I was like, here I am joining this group, and this is a guy that's been there, and he's looking at me telling me, wow, you really got a lot of experience. And I'm like, I started to be like, you know what? I am the expert. He was telling me, you're the expert. They're not the expert. And so today, like, I don't stand for somebody telling me how to do my job anymore, because I'm very comfortable saying, I used to do it that way, and a lot of people still do it that way. This is how we do it now. This is why. If you're not going to do it that way, we won't work well together. And it's perfectly fine if they choose to work with somebody else.
Have you found that customers want that when you say, hey, this is how we do it? Do they like that, or are they turned off by it?
I think most people want to be told how your process is. I'm a people pleaser, so I like to conform to however they want me to do things, but it no longer works when they're trying to run my job. I would say that maybe in the past I would be more compliant a little bit, but today it's more like a lot of people do it that way. That's not how we do it. And this is why. So they do like to hear that this is the way they do it. One of the greatest examples I give is when somebody wants to meet me on a Saturday or at 5:30 at night. And if you go on your estimates at those times, that's fine. But I tell people today, I meet during business hours, and if you need to meet on a Saturday or on a weeknight, it's probably not going to be a good fit when we're in construction either. So maybe and more times than not, they'll be like, oh, I could take off on Friday. I can meet you at the house and then I tell them these are when my times are. And if they want to meet me, they meet me. If they don't today, I am 100% comfortable with them saying it's not going to work. And I'm okay with that.
So you've done the work, you've been at this for a while. What would you say are some of the most impactful changes you've made to your business? Like, what are the 1 or 2 or 3 systems or processes that you've implemented in your business that have had the most positive impact for you?
Pre-construction, bar none, it streamlines everything. From pre-construction, we came up with a binder that is what we call our hub, which is where everything lives. We have QR codes. It's all online too, so anybody can access it, but that's also come out of pre-construction. Shannon's putting that together over time. Any one of our subs or our guys can walk onto the job and what's this faucet? And there's a sheet hanging in the bathroom with the specs and everything with QR codes. We try to make it as idiot-proof as possible. We try to get all our guys on board. This is where you find it. But if they can't, there's going to be a QR code somewhere on the job that they could find out what it is. That was very impactful pre-construction, bar none, because all my lead times became understandable. We weren't waiting for things anymore. Everybody knew when the next person was coming to the job. So that was great. Another thing that was a huge impact for me was in the learning to let my employees do their job instead of me trying to do their job. For years and years, I talked about Jonathan, who has been with me since before I even started this company. He's worked next to me for 10 years. He knew how to do things, but I would always get in the way. I would say, I'll order the material. I'll call the subs. And when we went through this and we sat down and we started talking about nailing the handoff and all that, he started to understand things a little bit more. He wanted to learn more. And today he calls me and tells me what's going on the jobs. Like all my life, I was a master troubleshooter, and he, because of his working with me, is very good at it. And more times than not, I just say, John, I trust what you're going to come up with. Go for it. And he comes up with an idea that's better or as good as mine anyway. And so he has really transformed into a new super that is just like, I'm out of day-to-day operations, which was what all I ever did. I'm out of firefighting, which is all huge, impactful things that gives me the, how do I market? How do I do other things with the company?
Hey, it's Todd, and we'll get back to the episode in just a minute, but let me ask you something. Have you ever signed a contract and then everything starts to feel a little bit chaotic? Questions fly around like, who's ordering what? When does the job actually start? Is the team ready? Did anybody order this material? Has this been approved yet? Project starts to feel like a fire drill, right? Well, the biggest problem in most construction businesses isn't a lack of effort. It's not the people. It's not the projects. It's not the clients. It's not you. It's the gaps in your process. Gaps where details fall through the cracks, where nobody's sure what to do, who's doing what, when it gets done, and you, the owner, end up filling in all those gaps, right? When there are questions, who they got to call? If there's a problem, it's going to land in your lap. And the biggest gap is pre-construction, and the solution is simple. Nailing the handoff from sales to construction. Nail the handoff from the office to the field. Your projects are like a relay race, and there's a baton that needs to be handed off. Nailing the handoff is a well-designed pre-construction process that closes those gaps, eliminates the chaos, and gives you back control. It gives you back the time so you can work on the business instead of being buried in it. And we can help you build that process. The first step is to book a free business evaluation call with our team. On your business evaluation call, here's what we're going to help you do. Spot the real gaps that are creating the chaos, show you how to nail the handoff and how doing that will put you back in control of your business. We'll even uncover some of the hidden profit that's already in your business. And if it makes sense, we'll talk about how we can help you build a business that runs without you. Click the link in the show notes to schedule your call. Be advised, we only have a few spots available each week, and not everybody qualifies for this call. This is not for everybody. So if you have a wave of work coming at you, or you're planning on growing and hiring people, now's the time to close those gaps with a good pre-construction process. If you're ready to stop reacting and finally take control, this is your next step. Go book your free business evaluation call with my team today.
Let's talk about what's different about your business and your day-to-day compared to 3 years ago before you started SYCB. First of all, what's different about your day-to-day schedule and how you spend your time?
3 years ago, I would wake up in the morning and get phone calls on who's going to what job, what subs are going where, is the material on the job. That's how I would wake up and start all my days. I haven't gotten a phone call in, I don't think, 2 years asking me where somebody's going. Jonathan's taken that over. He's taken it off my plate. He orders material. So I have a much more relaxing morning. I come into the office at 8 o'clock. I leave every day at 4 o'clock. Wednesdays, I work a half a day. So I have a 34-hour work week, where 3 years ago, I probably had a 60-hour work week. So just the time at the office is night and day of what I'm, and I can come to the office and I stay here for most of the day. I don't run off to a job and go fix something, run off over here and meet a sub and go, which is how I did it for years and years and years.
When you're in the office, what are you able to work on now that wasn't really an option for you 3 years ago?
I'm much more focused on company as opposed to jobs. We put an SOP together so that Shannon comes out on all my sales calls. So when we go out, we have specific times allotted for when we go on sales calls. We try and make each sales call the same. It's still a learning process because what we have documented and how we actually execute it are not 100% in sync yet, but we're trying to get there. For instance, I've never marketed in my entire life until this past November, because I've always had a great name and a good reputation. So I never felt like I needed to market. I'm more able to focus. Like now I'm like, okay, well, let's market, because even though I've never had to market before, I've learned that market before you need to. So you don't have to try and fill $1 million gaps when somebody pulls out of a job, which I always just took for granted. But my focus is much more intentional on whether it's a specific job, whether it's going out to meet clients, whether it's going to subcontractor walkthroughs, to bid projects, which we only do when we're getting paid for the estimate. And there's a whole list of things that I come in and I do daily, as opposed to starting off the day firefighting and problem solving and all that. That's gone.
What are some measurable or quantifiable results that you've seen in your business over the past few years, to the extent that you're comfortable sharing?
I would say 3 years ago, we did I'm guessing. I think it was $1.7 million in volume. And then today we have 2 less employees, and we closed out the books last year at $3.1 million with 2 less employees. We're a little off from where we wanted to be this year. We had a couple jobs that fell through that were very difficult to fill the voids, but we still have produced more with less people. And when we went through the SYCB program, I remember when we were done, my head was spinning with the amount of information we had. And it was like, who do we hire? How do we get this done? And what ended up that we didn't have to hire, we just had to streamline our processes, like with the accountability chart. Like when we actually did that work, all of a sudden my work and Jonathan's work started to separate a little bit. And Shannon and Jonathan's work started to separate a little bit. And mine and Shannon started to, so we became more responsible for what we're supposed to be doing. And everybody, I think, got a little calmer. So all the way to the fact that last June, so just 6 months ago, or whatever, 8 months ago, we had done $400,000 of work that June. And that was more than we had done the whole first quarter. Yet everybody was calm. Everybody wasn't running around the office with their head on fire. I was still leaving at 4 every day. I was coming in at 8. Same thing with Shannon. Jonathan had everything in the field going. So we had a lot of work going on, and we were not in this chaos mode, which was fantastic.
What do you attribute that reduced chaos to? What helped you eliminate the chaos specifically, do you think?
So a combination of who knows what they're responsible for, and the pre-construction. I cannot talk enough about pre-construction, because the fact that I get all the information, and I'm going to say all the information, listen, if they don't know if they want low iron glass in their shower door or not, I'm not worried about that. But if I get as much information as I can before they start, and I tell them that one of the beauties of the pre-construction is that our change orders on work that is not optional, that has to be done, our change orders on projects over the past 2 years have been between 0 and 4%, which I can't tell you how many people ask me about contingencies on jobs. They're like, what do we figure for contingencies? Should we put in 20%, 25%? What is it? And I'm like, I told them just that. I go, listen, over the past 2 years, our extra charges on not elective stuff, but stuff that you are not able to control is between 0 and 4%. So I'm not putting more of a contingency than that, because when we get paid for our estimate and we go through this project and you pick out everything, when you pick your powder room floor, that's a water jet cut marble floor, we tell you in pre-construction, you picked out a tile that's 4 times your allowance, and it's also costs twice as much to install. Is that what you want to do? Or would you rather pick something else? And they say, half the times they say, I'm not paying that much. Or they say, we really love the tile. So that price goes into the contract. And now when we go to do their bathroom, my tile guy knows what he's installing. They know they have to seal it. They know everything's already done. So there is no extra charge because we took care of it in pre-construction. It's mind-blowing how there's a little bit of pushback at the beginning, but there's not one customer that we have taken through pre-construction that has had said to us, that wasn't a good idea. People love it when they're done, and they are 100% fully informed with everything that goes on in the project.
Yeah, this pre-construction phase, it's the secret. The work we do, it's really, I think it's primarily around pre-construction, and then other things kind of support it. But there's so many remodelers, especially, and custom home builders, and commercial GCs, and even trade contractors, and they're just dealing with a pre-construction deficiency. They don't know it. They can't put their finger on it because the problems show up in the field, so they think that's where the problem is, or they show up on the financials, they show up with subcontractors, and the answer is you got to have a good pre-construction process. And most people, they don't know. They're like, what? What does that mean? That's where it's at. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I'm curious, what are some results you've seen over the past, now that you've been doing this for better part of 3 years, what are some results that can't necessarily be measured Could be personal stuff, quality of life, how do you sleep, stuff like that.
Just last week, my super, Jonathan, came in, sat across the desk from me. He looks at me, he goes, do you ever get away from it? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, work. Can you ever get away from it? I'm like, what's going on? I said, actually, yeah, I can, but what's up? He goes, I was sitting on home and I was scrolling through my Instagram, and next thing you know, I'm on co-construct and I'm answering some questions for our clients. And I'm like, John, I'll tell you, years ago, I left work, but I was still working the entire time I was home. If somebody calls me, I'm answering the phone. Subcontractors, clients, I'm always talking to somebody. I got to set up tomorrow's day. So that is 100% done. And I made it a very specific point to tell him it's important for you to separate time at home and time with work. Because not only does that true for me, but I want it to be true for my employees. I don't want them to have to answer. Now, if there's something going on a job where I used to, 3 a.m, used to go fix a leak, he's taking care of that. Doesn't happen often, but those are things that he's taking care of because that's part of his responsibility. It's very important to separate work from not work. So one of the non-measurables is like Jonathan, over the past, I think last year, he bought a home working for me. He put a kitchen in, by himself. These are unmeasurable things that are awesome to see. I get to watch Shannon, who came to me very smart, but her role, I would get to watch her role change and be like, where do we want this company to go? In the past, before Shannon got here in 2020, I was pretty sure I was just going to chug along and do this for as long as I could and drift off into, whatever. But today it's like I'm building a company to support the people around me. I want this company to run without me. I want it to be better. I want to leave this company better when I get out than when I was here. So that's something that's exciting to do. I don't know. I haven't given myself a time frame on that, but it's definitely a light I could see. I don't have to just bang nails until I can't move anymore,
You've done a great job. You and Shannon have both done a great job of implementing and sticking to the process. You went through SYCB, you joined the CEO Alliance. What would you say are some of maybe the top 1 or 2 challenges you grappled with as you worked to implement these changes in your business?
The biggest obstacle is trying to do it for me was like, okay, I have all this information. How do I get it all done? How do I implement all of this? And if you look at that, it's an overwhelming mountain that I don't think I could be like, oh my God, I have to implement all this stuff. I don't even know how to start. If I could give anybody any advice, I would say do it slowly. Pick 1 or 2 that you want to implement, and by all means implement them. And that doesn't mean implement it when you think it's perfect. Implement it so that you start doing it so that you can modify it as you go. Because I can tell you everything that I've implemented that we've learned from you guys, at some point, it's like, okay, we have to tweak it for some reason. And we always tweak it to get better. Just like I always try to improve my standards. It's the same thing with the systems. I'm always going to try and improve the stuff that you guys have given me as a baseline to start on. You could tell that by look at our revenue maximizer that Shannon redid. Everything has to get started. And if you try and get it perfect to start it, I know I would never work on it. I'd be like, it's not perfect. I can't do it. I'm much more of a like, okay, that's close. Let's run with it and see where it goes.
That's really good advice, because a lot of people get stuck thinking that their processes have to be like their projects, right? Because when you build a project, it's got to be right. It can't be 80% right. It's got to be right because of the risks. But when it comes to processes, it's a different mindset. You have to get it going and get some real life feedback and then improve it. And a lot of people get stuck thinking, well, it has to be perfect. This process, this checklist, this document, this role has to be perfect before I even try it. And they just keep tweaking it, and it never gets out into the real world. So that's great advice. Manish used a great analogy once. It's like a football team. if they draw up a new play, at some point you have to run the play. You have to get some reps and see how it works. Then you can improve it. You can't just keep drawing X's and O's on the whiteboard infinitely. You got to run the play. And it's the same way with the process. So yeah, pick something that's going to give you the most bang for your buck. Where's the most pain? Where the most fires? What's costing you the most time? Pick that, implement a process, get it going. It could be half-ass to start with, but you've absolutely got to get it going. I'm curious, have there been any unexpected side effects? And maybe there's something like, wow, I didn't sign up for this, but this is something I didn't expect, but I like it.
CEO Alliance itself is a great club. I don't know what you want to call it. It is really, it's dynamite. And the people in there, I work best when I'm held to account. And when I joined the CEO Alliance, it put me in a spot where, okay, I don't want to disappoint. I don't want to not do things for people. It's an added layer of I'm doing this for something else. Meaning like, again, if we're in our group meetings and we're saying we got to do something, I don't want to be the one guy that's not doing it. There's a ton of things I still need to work on for my business, but it's more manageable. It's not as big of a problem as the ones I came here with.
You mentioned the CEO Alliance. So you've been in that program for, I think, over 2 years now, maybe right after you finished SYCB. What accomplishment are you most proud of that you have achieved over the past couple of years being in the CEO Alliance? Anything come to mind?
I don't think that I am a slave to my company anymore. I believe that there are certain ways for me to grow this so that the company, so that I don't need to be at the heart of it. It's really nice to see my employees, Jonathan, Shannon in particular, do things way better than I could do it, especially if it's something that I don't like to do. Give them a job, let them do it better than I do it, and realize that if you want to slow something down, just throw it on my desk. We'll slow it down. There's rarely a time that an email or a text comes into my phone that doesn't get attached to Shannon or Jonathan so that I know somebody's taking care of it.
So let's talk about the CEO Alliance a little bit. How would you describe the CEO Alliance in your own words? And then what has being part of that done for you?
I love being part of a bigger whole. And I think that I've been a part of 3 different groups because some people leave. And I have to say, at the end of my one-on-one with Manish the other day, I'm like, can you give me an idea of why somebody would leave this? Because right now I'm in a group and I'm really, like, the people that are in it are really, they're right on. The 5 people in our cohort, the 5 companies are really lights out. It's awesome. And I asked Manish why some people leave. And he said it's mostly because people say the same thing over and over again. They don't change. They're not gonna. I really believe that the CEO Alliance helps me to change my company into a better place from top down. I love, like I said, watching my employees grow and be part of something bigger. I think that the CEO holds me to that. I think everybody at these meetups is somebody worth talking to learn something about how they do things. We've taken things from other companies that are priorities on our front now that I would have never thought of, and everybody's willing to share what works with them. Now, I don't feel like there's actually a company literally right up 208, which is only 3-4 miles from us, White Maple, who we're very friendly. They're doing a great job. I think it's awesome that, because I was asked if I cared if somebody, I didn't know who they were, but they asked if it was okay. And I was like, I love big contractors. This industry gets a bad rap because everybody knows a horror story of construction. Everybody. Every single job I go on to that they've had work done, I ask them why they're not using their last contractor, and almost 100 times out of 100, it's, well, they didn't do this, or they didn't do that, and they're always upset with the project that they had done. And I don't get to witness that because I don't have those customers. And it's not that listen, when I was running jobs, unlike how I'm doing it now, I still tried to keep my customers happy. It was just so much more difficult because every project was like, I mean, I did it, but it was very difficult to get the material there and the subs there, everybody. But now with this schedule and systems, it's so much easier.
What's one goal that you're focused on right now that maybe you didn't even think was possible 3 years ago?
So one is a 4-day work week for myself. I think it's doable. I just have to, I would like to, I'll get there hopefully by the end of the year. And the other thing is we're working with a marketing company now that I said earlier that from 1991 to 2025 of November, I had never marketed other than a magazine ad. And people that I've talked to in the CEO Alliance, some people are spending $200,000 a year on marketing, some people spending, $2,000 a month. So the range is enormous. But this past year, we lost a couple pretty significant jobs, and it left us in a spot where it wasn't work that I could fill in. Like you can't fill in $1 million job. But when we slowed down, we were able to learn and still work as opposed to jump into landing a job that I don't have everything for and just try to get some income in. So I guess what I'm saying is not going back to my old ways in difficult times helps me to grow. And taking on that marketing was a pretty big goal of ours. It was never one that I never thought I needed. I always thought I could be a referral, but there's so much work that's missed on just referrals because it's massive, the amount. And I learned that from you guys because I was never expecting to market. And so we're in it. We're not expecting any monster results just yet, but I think we're in it at the right time because we can focus a little bit on it just before we get ready to hit the road running in the spring.
It definitely makes your business much more resilient if you're marketing, to have a steady flow of leads. And if you think about it as if your approach is to help people, if you have a good business and you provide a good service like you do and provide a good experience, then you can almost convince yourself you have a moral obligation to do some marketing so people can find out about you, so they don't have to work with those other guys that gave them a bad experience. Different way of thinking about marketing. It's not like I only market if I have to. It's I market because it's the right thing to do. And I'm trying to help people out. One last question for you. What's your hometown? And if somebody's ever visiting, where's the bar or restaurant they absolutely have to go to while they're in that town?
So my office is in Glen Rock, New Jersey. I would have to say there's a ton of great bars and restaurants, all kinds of sports bars and restaurants around here. We are only about 25 minutes from New York City. So if you need to find something, there's something for everybody here, but I don't have a specific one in Glen Rock. You can always go to the Glen Rock Inn. It's right down the street. I don't know that I would fly into Glen Rock to go to the Glen Rock Inn, but it's a nice place to visit.
If they were going to go to the city, where would you recommend they go?
Well, I'm a huge Ranger fan, so I go right to the Garden. Where would I go in the city? I couldn't even name a restaurant. There are so many of them. I would follow my wife. My wife's the foodie in the family.
There you go. Follow your wife. All right. Well, if folks want to connect with you, follow you on social media, find out more about what you're doing, hire you for a job, perhaps, maybe apply for a job, where's the best place or the best places for them to go, John?
So our website is John Springstead Construction. Instagram is also at John Springstead Construction. My website has a contacts page. It's where to find me.
We'll have those links in the show notes. John, congratulations on the success over the past few years. I remember our conversation from about 3 years ago and where you were at. And it's been fun to watch you guys change and grow since then. And I'm really impressed with the work you guys have done. You've increased revenue significantly. You have fewer employees. You're working fewer hours. It's all because of the good work you guys have done. Nice job implementing. That's what it's all about. We have a lot of great tools, but some people implement well like yourselves and some don't. You guys are reaping the rewards from good implementation. Nice job. Thanks for taking the time to be on here. And
My pleasure.
Speaking of meetups, I look forward to seeing you in Cancun next week.
Yeah, week and a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see you there. I'm excited.
Yeah. Our first international meetup. I'm sure it'll be a good time. All right, John. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Todd.
Hey, it's Todd. Before you go, if you own a construction business and you know you need to put the right systems in place, whether it's to be able to scale up, to be able to take a proper vacation, step away from day-to-day operations, if you know you need to make it more profitable, or even prepare it for a future sale, if you know you need to make some changes in your business, there are really only three options. And I want to clarify this for you. Option one is do nothing. Keep doing the status quo. Same inputs, same results. Keep doing the same thing that you've been doing. Option two is to DIY it, to do it yourself. You can try to reinvent the wheel, piece together solutions from books and podcasts, hope that trial and error gets you where you want to go. In my experience, this is the path of most resistance. Or there's option three, which is to find a proven system that delivers the results you're looking for. Think about it. It's sort of like when you sign up for software for project management or bookkeeping, you probably didn't try to code your own software, right? You found a system that works. So that's a proven system that gets you the results you're looking for. Well, if you're ready to systematize your construction business, we've helped hundreds of construction business owners implement our proven processes, including our Nail the Handoff pre-construction system. It works for home builders, remodelers, commercial general contractors, and trade contractors like electricians, plumbers, roofers. The first step is simple. Schedule a free business evaluation call with my team. Just click the link in the show notes to book your call. On that call, you'll walk away with clarity on the hidden root causes of your biggest challenges. You'll learn about the pitfalls that you want to avoid as you move forward with your business, and you'll walk away with a customized roadmap that you can follow to get where you want to go. This is not a sales pitch, okay? There's no pressure. We may not even talk about working together. You may not even hear about our program. This is all about evaluating your business. It's going to be the most valuable hour that you've spent working on your business in a long time. So don't wait. Click the link in the show notes to book your free business evaluation call now. And the last thing, if you've been enjoying this podcast and getting value out of it, I've got a quick favor to ask. Could you take a moment and leave a 5-star rating and maybe a short review on the platform that you're listening or watching on? It really helps the podcast grow. It lets other people know what to expect. Plus, I love to hear your feedback. It means a lot to me. Thanks so much. My name is Todd DeWalt from ConstructionLeadingEdge.com, and I'll catch you on the next episode.